So much to discuss, and we have more audio from that 60 Minutes interview / Match.com success story that was the President and Secretary of State Clinton. You know, I still maintain it's so nice to see them pretend to get along very well, considering how much hostility they demonstrated towards each other during the 2008 campaign. So that's nice. You know, if they can hug it out, who amongst us cannot? For this, and of course, the latest, especially with Egypt, we have our foreign policy expert. He's so kind to join us every week. He's with the D.C. International Advisory and former advisor to VP Dick Cheney. Stephen Yates, happy Monday to you, Stephen.
Hi, Dana. Great to be with you.
First and foremost, I want to ask your opinion on the President and Secretary of State's their answers in the Steve Croft interview, especially when they were discussing Benghazi. There were a couple of softball questions from Croft on the subject, and I don't think there was any real exploration of what exactly happened. What did you make of it?
Well, I think, sadly, like the hearings we had, we didn't learn very much that we didn't already know, and the administration hasn't really indicated anything more than we're ready to pack up and move on to the next issue. And I think the president sitting side by side with Hillary, first and foremost, is trying to bask in the glow of her public approval ratings, and also to basically try to close a chapter.
Yeah, exactly. It very much sounded like that. And of course, the president saying, well, you know, about why Benghazi didn't work. I've been told before that, well, you know, at any particular time, someone in the government isn't doing something right. And then they kind of chuckled. It seems, am I being overly sensitive, or are they just treating this entire issue just with way too much of a light touch?
Well, frankly, they're treating it with the imperial touch. We, the little people, don't deserve to know the details. They, those who rest on Mount Olympus, know better than we, and those just don't let the little people and things like the truth get in the way. Because it wasn't a nagging mid-level detail to choose to lie to the American public at the waning days of the campaign.
Right. I want to switch gears and ask about the rioting and the unfolding of what exactly is happening in Egypt with Morsi. It seems, what has it been, just 2 years after riots and the ushering out of Mubarak. Here we have Mohammed Morsi and the ruling Muslim Brotherhood. It seems as though it's like on replay. There was a riot, 40 people dead, 500 injured. The military police are out. What exactly is happening? And is this more of a reaction to the Muslim Brotherhood and Morsi trying to have the government become more Islamist, or what's sparking this?
Well, my sense is that there are a couple of sort of larger themes at play. One is it was foreseeable that the first regime to come in after a long-standing dictator doesn't usually last that long in terms of strong public opinions or the euphoria of the moment of out with the old, in with the new. And there was nothing about the Muslim Brotherhood that would suggest that the way they think about economics was going to do any good for the average Egyptian in trying to have a better life. The problem is that post-Mubarak, there was an organized movement ready to take the reins of power in the Muslim Brotherhood. As the Muslim Brotherhood loses credibility and the ability to lead in Egypt, there isn't really any organized alternative. So you're just left with people seeking opportunistic shots at influencing events, their infiltration by others in the region. It's really a much less pleasant prospect of seeing the post-Muslim Brotherhood transition, even though many of us would like the more secular, or at least less Islamist forces in Egypt to have the upper hand.
Now, the opposition, those who are out there protesting that we see, you know, on the television cameras in the square and so on and so forth, are saying that Morsi, they have to meet new demands, including reforming the Constitution. What are some of the demands that they're asking for and saying that they will not stop rioting until they get?
Well, a lot of the demands are driven first and foremost by economic demands and sort of standing in society for people who happen not to be in the Muslim Brotherhood. And a lot of the demands are pushing back on some of the overreach that Morsi and his allies have tried to put in place in their brief tenure in power. But a lot of it has to do with getting in place a system capable of governing what is a significant population and significant economy in a vital region. So we have economic problems at home. They're very, very serious. We need to deal with them. It's way more dire for these people.
Right.
And when there's lack of employment, lack of opportunity, and a hostility among sort of us versus them in terms of Muslim Brotherhood versus broader Egypt, it's just a volatile mix.
Now, El-Baridi, I know he had Muslim Brotherhood associations. Is he more? He's more secular than Mohammed Morsi is, though.
That's my understanding too. But really, we can't know too well where these people go once they are drunk with power.
Right.
I mean, to a degree, we knew what we should have known,
Right.
where Morsi might like to go. But as we found, a lot of people, Republican and Democrat, sadly, were sort of drunk on their own with the notion that these people are ones we can do business with because at least they're not al-Qaeda. That's kind of a crazy standard to hold. But Morsi has proven that political Islamism can go a long way to hurting our interests and hurting our allies.
Right.
So others need to be tested and vetted too.
It sort of seems like the musical chairs of leadership because, I know El-Baridi was one of the candidates in the election. I use air quotes for election, in the election as well. And it seems as though they realized that he still had a weakened administration and they thought they would exploit this. It just seems like not so much they're standing up for Egyptians, but more so we still have a opportunity for a power grab here. Let's take it while it exists.
I think there's a lot to that. Really, as we look at the way forward, probably if there's going to be an alternative to the Muslim Brotherhood leadership right now, it's probably going to be remnants of the Mubarak regime. And in many ways, the problems of the Mubarak regime were the old man and sort of old ways,
right?
But not necessarily every element of what that beast was. And of course, we're dealing in a region that's not full of saints and angels. So we're probably going to have some less than ideal alternatives, but at least find something that's not so openly Islamist.
Right. To talk about immigration, the Gang of Eight just not long ago had their press conference outlining their immigration overhaul that they would like to accomplish, 4 steps plus a number of other things. We had Dick Durbin saying the DREAM Act would be involved in this. Marco Rubio is fighting to keep them to stay to the right. And all of them, Stephen, it seems like we've been hearing these promises of, well, we're going to do this contingent upon securing the border. We're going to get control that border. But it never, ever happens. And I'm concerned that it's not going to yet happen again. And that's a huge, especially when we had all the stories last year of Hezbollah involved in northern Mexico. It seemed like that would be the first priority. The first step would be to secure the border. But that, I don't know. What did you make of the press conference? And do you remember all of these promises?
Yeah, well, this issue is another one where I think there's a heavy, heavy dose of political grandstanding. And on the Republican side of it, I got to say, I'm just not thrilled of leaving the future of the Republican Party in John McCain's hands.
Oh, yes.
So when it comes to, if you're going to take a serious approach to this, you're exactly right to point in the direction of there is no such thing as a secure border until there's a secure northern Mexico. If there is an open narco war or civil war in northern Mexico, we just flat out aren't going to have security at our border or in the territories adjacent to it. It will create openings for terrorists to take advantage of, as those Iranians allegedly used that as their pathway into the United States they were trying to make for an attempt on our capital. So in innumerable ways, this just oozes with lack of seriousness, an attempt at political posturing. I'm afraid we are in a high theater time of public policy, whether it's ranging from guns to health care to this, in fact.
Right.
And, of course, I doubt anyone made clear mention in this gang of discussion here about maybe we'll stop running guns along this area as part of our way to secure the border.
Yeah, that seems like a really good idea. Maybe let's not walk, air quotes, assault rifles across the border to give to Mexican drug cartels. Well, we have a DOJ that doesn't even want to take responsibility for it, so I'm highly skeptical that they'll say that they're going to stop it.
Right there with you on that.
Yeah. Well, and this sort of leads to the last question I have for you, too, because and I think you agree with me on this, too, state and local authorities, those individuals should work as partners with immigration and, to ease up a little bit on this federal bureaucracy and to make immigration where people can take care of it a little faster and it's not so burdening on the national system, the federal system. And I know that this administration has been incredibly incredibly hostile towards that. And it would seem, and I hope that that's going to be a point of contention, at least as far as Republicans are concerned, and pushing that. What do you make of? It seems to me that would be the logical step after securing the border.